Hey y'all, Daniel Aaron here, your guide to vibrant living. And pardon me, it might be a little noisy. It's not the optimal lighting, I know. I hope you enjoy the view behind me though. I'm just super excited. I'm so excited because, alright, I'll make it short. There's a client I've been working with for maybe 6 months now, who in some way came to me because she felt like the last 40 years of her life, she's in her 70s, and like her whole life has been a lot of suffering. She's had really serious health problems. She had her pituitary gland removed 40 years ago with a radical, horrible sort of experimental surgery at the time. She suffered with just not having enough energy and dragging herself through days. She grew up with two sets of parents, all alcoholics, so much abuse in the family. And she is a very altruistic woman. She's devoted herself to being a DJ on public radio, and she's quite well known in her area. And she's done some great work. And she came to me in some way because she sensed that there was something for her to do in the world, that it was time for her to offer something of her own. She'd interviewed so many people, lots of famous people. She'd done a lot of great things, yet none of it really came from her. And she had this sense in her that there's a creativity in her that now or never is sort of how she put it. And the kind of work that I've been into, yoga and meditation and stuff, had never crossed her radar, not of interest at all. So we've been slowly over the last several months building up, how do I want to say it, her own use of the tool of meditation in the way I'm teaching it these days as a quantum visualization, manifestation, mystical experience, and she's done really well with it. And last week we got on our call and she told me almost haphazardly about what she'd created, and she wanted to create this piece of art that is an honoring of the land where she comes from. And she's been really doing some great work developing toward it. And I was saying, don't worry about the form yet. You know, the form will come. How do you want to feel? What do you want it to contribute? What do you want the people receiving it to feel like? And we're going through this. And she's like, yeah, but what's it going to be like? I'm just like, just trust that that part will be there, and put out into the field that, you know, these other elements of how you want it to feel and what you want it to accomplish. So, you know, blessedly she trusted me on that and she did it. And then she came on the call last week and said, wow, I got this call and somebody just invited me to create a radio drama, and it was just so perfect because the form came to her and it was exactly what fit for her and exactly what worked. So and that was amazing. I was so inspired by that. And then we kept going and I said to her, all right, now you've created that, which is miraculous, right? And she was with me on that. I said, so what I invite you to do this week is to create something that's frivolous, that doesn't really matter, that's just, you know, if it happens, great, but you don't have like skin in the game. It's not growing a new pituitary. It's not this, you know, massive work from your whole lifetime. It's just something kind of silly. And she's like, well, I'm not really into silly, you know. And so then I talked to her about, do you remember in the original Rocky movie, right? And Rocky Balboa is the underdog, and he doesn't have the fancy equipment, and he's got, you know, Mick is his trainer. And so one of the things that Mick says to him is, all right, do you want to win this fight? You know, you got to get fast. And so he gives him the assignment to catch a chicken. And they go out in, like, you know, a backyard, and he says, catch a chicken. He throws a chicken down, and Rocky's like, are you serious? He's like, you want to be quick? Catch that chicken, right? And it's totally silly, great scene in the movie. And so I tell my client about this, and she says, okay, I'll do it. So here's what happens. This is what she told me today, and I'm just right away sharing it with y'all because I'm so excited about it. And she's, I'll leave her name out so that she can stay private because she's a known person. And so she said that she took on the assignment for me last week, and right away imagined that she's going to manifest something that doesn't really matter. She's going to manifest receiving flowers. Somebody would give her flowers. You know, it's not impossible, but not likely. It's not a birthday. It's not a holiday. She doesn't have any suitors or anything that she knows of or anything. So A day goes by, no flowers. Second day comes, no flowers, and she's starting to think about this, and she said, well, maybe I made it too narrow, and so what I'll do is I'll make it so flowers come for somebody in my midst in an unexpected way. Next day, she's just about to finish up her radio show, and she's there in the booth, and the radio host that's coming on after her has arrived, and he's sort of sitting there, and they're nearby, and the phone rings, and he gets it, and they can see through the video monitor that it's somebody in the lobby, and they need to receive if somebody comes in the lobby. So he says, yeah, okay, I'll be right there. So he leaves the room, and he leaves, and then she kind of leans over and she looks, and wouldn't you know it, in the lobby is a floral delivery guy. And she looks at that, and she's already starting to go, oh my goodness. And then her radio partner comes up and walks in, and he says, these are for you, where would you like them? What they were is a gift to her because she agreed to do an interview of somebody a month before, and it was a little bit of a messed up thing, and it was, you know, kind of a favor she did for a university to do this. Pardon me for the noise. There's a little bit of a favor she did for them, and so as a thank you, they sent her these flowers. 4 weeks later, they've never ever sent her flowers. She's never gotten flowers as a thank you for something like this. And how cool is that, right? And not that her getting flowers, and I just learned this expression, I'm not trying to send myself flowers, not that really means anything. What it means, though, outside of the actual event is, wow, we really can create. You know, and I've told lots of stories about my own creations, and what I love about her creation is she didn't even believe it a little bit. She's an extremely ordinary person. She's just like us. And so then, I'll just say this last part, it's so cool too. So I said to her, okay, so well, what does it mean? And how does it change things going forward? And then she told me this wonderful story about the next day, how when that happened, she just felt so alive, right? And of course, when we tap in beyond our human limitations, there is infinite life force. She felt so alive. And then the next day she goes into the bank, and it's one of those classic bank scenes. One teller on duty, long snaking line, bunch of people kind of somber, everybody's quiet, looking at devices. And she's hanging out there, and she's feeling this, you know, kind of sparkling. And what's playing on the stereo there is a Muzak, right? And then what comes on is a song it was an old disco song by the Hughes called Don't Rock the Boat. You know the one, Don't Rock the Boat, baby. Anyway, I'll give you that part. And standing in front of her is this tall African-American man, and he starts just really in a subtle way kind of getting into the music, and she, my client, is behind him, and she's kind of getting into it too a little bit too. And then totally silent, the whole bank. So after a little bit, she says to him, so are you a musician? He says no, and says, oh, well, you know. And then anyway, they start talking, and she starts kind of interviewing him like she does. And they have this great interaction and lively and talking, and then, you know, when they finish their respective, they're like, say, hey, see you later, and there's just like this friendliness and life in a dead sort of situation, which to me is one of the just beautiful minor moments of paying it forward, creating vibrancy when there was dullness. One of my favorite, this is what I'll leave you with, one of my favorite pieces of advice for writers is that a writer's job is to make the ordinary extraordinary. And I just love what she did, feeling tapped into life, having created more beauty in the world, quite literally, having got another level of her own worthiness and her own power. She took that life force and she brought it into the most mundane situation you can imagine, Saturday afternoon bank line, and she brought a vitality to it. She took the ordinary and she made it extraordinary. I was super touched and inspired and just so grateful for her, the work that she's doing for all of us, and for me getting to be able to be of some support to a beautiful soul like that. All right, that's it for me for now. Thanks, y'all. See you later.